Make a habit of empathy, to recognize ourselves in each other.
Well, my name is Chip Baggett. I'm from Asheville, North Carolina, in private practice as a psychotherapist. The metaphor that I was telling you about that came to me, if I really want to understand empathy, I'm also a jazz musician by avocation, and have been in a situation that's kind of like what I'm thinking here, which is if you think of three improvisational jazz musicians, a piano, bass player, and drummer, and they're playing improv together for a while, each one playing from their instrument. But these musicians happen to know how to play each person's instrument. So at some point, they're engaged in their part of the pattern of the three. At some point, they get up and they move to the other person's instrument, kind of like a musical chairs kind of thing, and then they start playing that same piece from the other person's instrument, playing the same patterns that the other person is playing. And then they do that for a while, and they move to the third one. So now that all three of them have played in the pattern of the part of that particular instrument. So now everybody really experiences what that is for each other. So that's my metaphor for empathy.
And what are they experiencing?
Oh, well, like the piano player first might be experiencing melody and chords and the feeling of their fingers as they're touching the keyboard, and they're listening for the percussion, they're listening for the bass because the chords are going to follow the bass line. So they're kind of in a certain kind of physical coordination of fingers with the rhythm and the melody, and perhaps even a counter melody, who knows. So that would be their perspective, you might say. And there may even be looking up and looking at the other two musicians. So then the percussionist is probably primarily focused on rhythmic patterns, but is also listening, obviously, to the bass, to be coordinated with the timing, and then is perhaps just enjoying hearing the piano at the same time, and kind of looking, feeling, and listening to the three of them coming together, but from the perspective of, he's got a physical experience of holding the sticks, and he's using his feet, with the bass drum and the hi-hat, and if he's playing a trap set. And, so he's engaged, and he's regulating perhaps his own volume, because drums, if you're not amplified, will tend to dominate over the other sounds. So he's listening for volume, and rhythm predominantly. That'd be one way. And then the bass player, whether it's a bass guitar or a stand-up bass, is going through the patterns and the walking, perhaps, through a series of notes within the key and within the pattern. So, and that's a totally different. I mean, if he's holding a stand-up bass, he's kind of caressing that in a certain way, and there's certain muscle movements there as well. So, or if he's using a bow at times, or if it's a fretless bass and he's slapping, who knows what? But he's having his own physical experience, as well as he's listening to the piano. They're playing together, and he's kind of in the groove with the percussionist. So, and they're playing off of each other. So that would be an aspect of his experience. And of course, from each position, they're all seeing the other two, all right? So that would be my sense of it.
So you had that metaphor now of empathy. What would be a metaphor for the opposite of empathy?
In that context?
Any context. It could be that context or another context.
Actually, to follow that context, because I've had that experience too, is where musicians can end up feeling like they're competing for who's dominating the music, who's pushing the tempo, who's moving it to another key, who's louder than another. I mean, I've actually seen musicians kind of get into this kind of inadvertently almost competing with each other, and then they're totally focused on their own experience. So there's not a real sensitivity to what is the other musician hearing and experiencing from my play. Being a drummer myself, I'm more sensitive to that because I can get away with this because I'm a drummer. A lot of drummers, I think, are insensitive in the way they play with other musicians. Not obviously, there's many, many exceptions to that, but so I am particularly interested in not dominating when I play, because it doesn't feel good to the other people, and it really doesn't feel good to me either. So it's kind of like continue to adjust and move and weave with each other, the opposite being you don't do that. And so it really becomes more about control and domination and isolation. I'm in my own space doing my own thing. And then it's easy to feel sort of almost intruded upon by the other musicians.